All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to this explainer. If you're working in the cell and gene therapy space, you already know the golden rule. The product literally is the process. So what exactly happens when that incredibly sensitive process has to change, scale, or move across the country? That is exactly what we're going to break down today. To make sense of all these dense regulations, we're going to follow a clear four-step path today. We'll cover navigating manufacturing changes, the core of comparability, scale-out and tech transfer, and finally, validating personalized products. We'll also tie it all together with a real-world case study. So part 1, navigating manufacturing changes and what exactly triggers the regulatory process. Think about the matrix of potential manufacturing changes you run into all the time. You've got facility transfers, batch scale increases, or equipment swaps. Then there are material changes, like tweaking a viral vector or altering a cell source. And of course, analytical or automation changes, like moving to a closed manufacturing system. Now, the criticality of these changes directly dictates your regulatory reporting category and the depth of evidence you need. You can't just flip a switch and implement a change. You need a rock-solid, documented scientific rationale assessing its true criticality. That brings us to part 2, the core of comparability, or as I like to call it, building the bridge over residual uncertainty. Once you make a manufacturing change, you've got to prove your product's quality hasn't missed a beat. Your absolute first and most heavily weighted line of defense is analytical comparability. This means comparing the quality attributes of the pre-change and post-change product. But you have to use the right tools for the job, specifically methods with proven stability indicating and potency indicating relevance. You are analytically proving the therapy is functionally identical before and after. And here is the absolute golden rule in this space. Predefined acceptance criteria, established before generating the comparison data, preserve scientific objectivity. Why is this so crucial? Well, human nature makes us want to fit the rules to the results we get. In comparability, your predefined acceptance criteria have to reflect scientifically justified, risk-based ranges that you establish before you ever peek at the new data. No post hoc tweaking to make the results fit. Now, if your analytics still leave some residual uncertainty, which, let's face it, happens all the time with complex biologics, you have to build a comparability bridge. You support this with process performance data like yields and in-process results, but keep in mind, non-clinical or clinical bridging is absolutely not a routine requirement. It's strictly risk-triggered and scoped solely to address that specific residual uncertainty. And a quick warning on platform knowledge. It's a great guide, but over-relying on it is a massive regulatory trap. It does not and cannot substitute for product-specific evidence. All right, on to part 3, scale-out and tech transfer, and how we expand the autologous footprint. There is a really stark contrast between traditional pharmaceutical scale-up and CGT scale-out. Traditional scale-up is all about larger single batches, right? You're focusing on process performance at a massive new scale. But with autologous cell therapies, we're usually scaling out. That means more parallel batches, more manufacturing lines, or entirely new geographic sites. Because of this, your whole strategic focus has to shift toward proving consistency across parallel operations to protect against those hidden site-specific quality differences. Let's ground this with a case study. Imagine Asteria Advanced Therapeutics is transferring its highly personalized T-cell process from a small academic lab over to a massive commercial CDMO. What gaps do they need to identify between the academic methods and what the CDMO actually requires? How do they make sure absolutely nothing gets lost in translation? To bridge that gap, they have to build a rigorous technology transfer package. This includes detailed process descriptions, critical parameters, and material specs. But the real make-or-break elements are analytical methods and operator training. The analytical methods require demonstrated equivalent performance at the receiving site. And because manual handling is so huge in CGTs, we're just a slight difference in how an operator pipettes can totally tank cell viability. Comparability and operator qualification have to be planned as an active, integral part of the transfer, definitely not as an afterthought. Finally, part 4, validating personalized products and ensuring small batch reliability. Once Asteria has successfully transferred their process, the final hurdle is validating that this setup works consistently for every single patient. Validation isn't a one-and-done event, it's a continuous life cycle strategy. You've got process characterization, process performance qualification, and continued process verification. The goal is to ensure these 3 distinct stages are linked sequentially, rather than treating them like isolated checkboxes. The critical link in that chain is process performance qualification, or PPQ. This is all about demonstrating, usually through a defined number of successful runs, that the commercial process reliably performs exactly as intended. The big takeaway here is that PPQ builds heavily on your earlier process characterization. PPQ should never, ever be the first time you're testing the relationships between your parameters and your product's quality attributes. And validation extends way beyond the main bioreactor. You need aseptic process simulations to prove you can prevent microbial contamination. You need shipping validations because these delicate living therapies actually have to survive transit across the country. You need hold time studies to assess process pauses. And, of course, freeze-thaw studies because a sudden temperature shock can instantly destroy product viability. Literally every step of the product's journey feeds right back into your broader control strategy. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a real-world challenge to chew on. Given the tiny lot sizes and small batch nature of CGTs, how do you adapt a continued process verification plan when dealing with the incredibly slow, low-volume reality of personalized medicine? When you don't have thousands of data points rolling in every month, how do you mathematically prove ongoing quality? It requires highly adapted, risk-based statistical approaches. It's exactly the kind of complex puzzle that makes mastering CGT regulatory strategy so vital and, honestly, so fascinating. Keep that in mind as you evaluate your own manufacturing networks.